There was a study done that determined that the average amount that an American household wastes per week for food is 2.1 pounds or 6.2 cups of food that could have been eaten that was tossed out. Food waste is a huge problem, and generally the people that are wasting the most food are grocery stores and not consumers. But the issue with us wasting food at home is not just the fact that we could have eaten the food, but that we are wasting money. If you buy a $3 avocado or a $1 avocado and you throw them out, you're wasting money. It doesn't matter the cost of the item. Tossing it means you're losing money. And I know food waste is inevitable, and even if you're working really hard to not waste food, it will happen. Food waste is one of the biggest things that we can change in our budget, but generally it's overlooked because we don't always count and understand how much we throw out. We don't count every dollar that we throw in the garbage. We don't write it down and think, oh, I threw out 2 tomatoes. That means I threw out $1.50. No, we just throw it out and we move on with our lives, and we become very conditioned with tossing out food. The thing is with your food budget, it's something that you can control more than rent or a mortgage. Those are things you generally can't change every single month and you generally can't control. But with food, you can change it and you can control how much you spend and how much you waste. If you were to throw out $3 worth of food every single day, which could be an avocado, a couple crackers, a tomato, a few little things, some leftovers, it would add up to $1,095 just thrown out on something that you could have eaten. What could you do with $1,000 today or at the end of the year that you wish you had the money for, but you don't have? The thing with food waste is it's hidden in our budget. So if you were to spend $1,000 a month for your family for groceries and you throw out $100 worth of food every single month, you're throwing away 10% of your grocery budget. So you really got to be careful and understand how much you're wasting. And I'd actually recommend this week, keep track of how much you're throwing out. If you throw something out, write it down, keep a tally, and see how much you're actually wasting every single week. Of course, another thing to mention is 1 week is not a great measurement of time. If you're only to measure something in a week, you could throw out nothing. And then next week you could throw out a lot. So generally, if you really want to keep track of how much food you're wasting, I'd recommend a month or a few months, but not everybody wants to do that or waste their time with that. So I'm just going to give you a few tips on how to stop wasting food. First things first is buy the groceries you actually like to eat. I don't care if broccoli's on sale. If you don't like broccoli, don't buy it. If you don't like kale, don't buy it. Stop buying things because it's healthy for you if you don't eat them. Now, buy healthy things that you actually like to consume. Maybe you don't like broccoli, but you like cauliflower, or maybe the other way around. So buy the item you like and you know you will eat, even if the item you don't like is really cheap. Don't just buy things because they're cheap, because if you're buying a cauliflower for $3 and you throw it out, you've thrown out $3. Even if it's $1 and you toss it out, it is money that you threw out. It doesn't matter how cheap it is if you don't eat it. Another thing that's important to be aware of is how you store your groceries. There are many different ways that you should store vegetables to make sure they stay fresh for longer so you can actually use them up. So I would recommend looking up how you can extend certain things and even look into methods or things you can purchase. My husband and I actually use vacuum seal containers and we love them. We got them from Costco. I'm not telling you to buy those things because they are an upfront cost, and if you can't afford it, don't get it. But what a vacuum seal container does, it takes all the air out and it lasts longer. However, there's a few things you can't put in vacuum seal containers, so you just need to be aware of that before you actually go and purchase them. And if you can't afford vacuum seal containers, don't buy them, and just learn how to maximize the length of time that your groceries will last by doing certain tips and tricks. There's so many online. If you're interested in a video, I can definitely do that as well. There's certain things like wrapping green onions in damp paper towel and putting it in a bag so it'll last longer. For me, for green onions, I know people say to put it in a mason jar and let it grow like that, but it didn't work for me as well as just wrapping it up with a damp paper towel and then putting it in a bag. Of course, there's a specific way that you can do that, but just make sure that you are storing things the way you should be storing them. Some fruits and veggies like to be damp, some fruits and veggies like to be dry. You need to be aware of what they want. It's like a person. You need to be aware of what they want so you can make them feel happy. No, but seriously, you need to be aware of how to store your groceries so they don't go bad quickly. Another thing to be aware of is it starts at the grocery store. So if you're buying something at the grocery store and you're buying too much of something, there's a chance you're going to waste it. And if you're buying too much because it's a good deal, you have to have a plan in mind before you get home so you know what you're doing with that. You don't have to eat everything, and that's the plus side of having a freezer. There's a lot of groceries that you can actually freeze. You can even freeze avocado, in chunks, you can freeze banana, you can freeze kale, you can freeze so many different things. There's certain things that aren't as great, like I don't freeze mushrooms personally because I just don't like how they get, but there's a lot of things that you can freeze and use. And the easiest way to know what you can freeze is just go look at a grocery store and see what they have in their freezer section, and then you can freeze the same things that they freeze because they're not special. Of course, they do have special machines to do those things, but you can do it too, even without the special machines. Shopping smart in the grocery store is also important as well. Looking at the produce you're buying is something that you really need to do. Sometimes I see people at the grocery store just pick up berries and just walk away. And I'm like, what are you doing? You didn't look at them. You don't know if they're moldy. You don't know, because I look at berries kind of like a crazy person. I flip them upside down a lot. I make sure there's no mushy spots. I want to make sure that I'm buying the best thing the store has to offer so that I don't throw it out instead of them throwing it out. I don't want to buy berries that have mold. I don't want to buy lettuce that's wilted and bad looking or like slimy. And that's something you have to be aware of too, how you shop, not just what you buy to make sure that you buy things you like, but also buying things that are good. Because if you go and you buy slimy lettuce and you put it in your fridge and you go to prep it the next day and say, oh my gosh, it's bad. It was only a day in my fridge. It's because you bought something that did not look nice. So don't go to the grocery store and just pick up whatever. Make sure that you look at the produce and the things that you buy to make sure that they are good. And even with freezer items, you want to make sure that you're buying something that's not puffy, because generally if you're buying a freezer item and the bag is puffy, there's a chance that maybe it thawed and then it refroze, or maybe there's some bacteria in there because it was left out too long. So try your best not to buy puffy things unless it's supposed to be puffy, but generally you gotta be careful because there could be bacteria in that. Going back to the grocery store, I'd recommend when you go to the grocery store to have a list and not just buy whatever your heart desires. Because sometimes when we buy whatever our heart desires, we're not actually buying items to make meals, which means that there's a likelihood those things will go bad and we toss them into the back freezer or the back pantry or in the back corner of your fridge that you never can access because there's always things in front of it. I'm speaking from experience. So you just want to be aware of having a plan for the food that you purchase. You don't have to make a meal plan if you don't like meal plans. They're helpful and useful. You can make a loose meal plan of saying, I want to cook these things in a week, and then you cook those things. You don't have to have such an in-depth plan though. When it comes to food waste, another thing a lot of people don't do is eat their leftovers. If you don't like to eat leftovers and you are not a leftovers person, don't make enough to have leftovers or freeze them right away. I personally do love to have leftovers because it makes it so convenient for me to go warm up food when I'm busy working and not have to worry about what I'm going to make. But if you're someone that doesn't like to use leftovers or eat them, don't have leftovers, don't make leftovers, or find fun recipes and ways that you can incorporate your leftovers into new meals. So let's say you make a rice dish and you don't really feel like eating them again because it's leftovers and you don't want to. You can throw that in a soup and make like a rice soup and then add a couple new ingredients, and then you have a new meal. So you can do that too, and you don't have to toss leftovers because you're throwing away money, and I do not want you to throw away money. Food is so important because we all need it, and it's really valuable to make sure that you're using the resources that you have well. So another thing to be aware of is expiration dates. Expiration dates are important because that is when the manufacturer or whoever made that says that you should eat it by. However, things can go bad before the expiration date and things can last longer than the expiration date. So you just need to use your own discretion when eating things. Anyway, whether it's expired or not, you just need to use your own discretion. I've bought lettuce mixes before and they went bad several days before their expiration date because there's certain lettuces in there that go bad quicker and the expiration date lied to me. I was aware of that. I didn't use it up, but it's important to know that even if it says an expiration date does not mean it's gonna last that long, or it can last longer than that. I used to waste a lot more food than I'd want to because I would buy a lot of groceries at the grocery store and then not consume them all. Whether that means my mom brought me a meal and made me something, or I went to her house, or my husband and I went out for a date. Either way, there was a lot of food waste. Not an excessive amount, much less than the average, I would say, but still we wasted a lot of food. And that's something I really don't want to do, and I think it's important to use everything up. Another thing you can do is if you see something going bad, use it right away. Don't put it down on a list to do later unless you're super busy. Try your best to use it right away. My husband and I actually just cooked Brussels sprouts last night because they were getting to the questionable point of you should maybe consider eating these in a few days or tossing them. Of course, I decided I'm going to roast them. And once we took off the outside leaves, cut the bottom, it looked perfect. So we used those, they're in the fridge, we're gonna eat them today, and they're prepped. Just because you prep and make something and cook it does not mean you have to eat it that day. You can keep it for a meal tomorrow and then you can eat it whenever you want to. All of these things take time to change. If you're someone that likes to buy a lot of groceries, buy a lot of food, or make a lot of leftovers and not eat them, it will take time for that to change. It's not going to happen overnight. These are slow little incremental things that you can do to work on making sure you don't waste as much food. I would definitely recommend a meal plan. I know a lot of people don't like meal plans, but at least buy only the things that you like and buy maybe just a little bit less than you think. If you need to have food, if you need to buy more, you can go to the grocery store, but if you buy a touch less, you'll make sure that you use everything and you'll make sure that you don't waste food. I'm hoping these tips have helped you think about food waste and think about how you can minimize your food waste so you can save money and eat all the food that you do have. It can be really hard to get in the habit of using everything up, especially for certain people that may have a scarcity mindset and like to make sure they have a little bit of food left so they never run out. But that's something you definitely need to work on if that's your case. I used to be like that. I never had wow, I'm going on a tangent here. I've never had food troubles growing up or anything like that, but I still like to make sure that there's a little bit of food left so I never run out of that certain thing. And that's something I'm working on too, because I don't want to waste food, and that's a way to waste food. It's just making sure you have a little bit of everything left over. There's a chance that you're going to toss that out. Let me know in the comments if you're someone that wastes a lot of food or if you're trying to reduce your waste this year, because of course the food we buy is meant to be eaten. Even if you do all these tips perfectly, food will be wasted. The goal is not perfection. The goal is just to reduce as much as possible. That is way better than just not thinking about the waste. I also wanted to mention that I make personal finance videos every single week, and if you're interested in that, please stick around and I would love to have you for all of my next videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!